Greetings all, this is a follow-up to my last video, Were People Saved Before Christ? I wasn't particularly happy with that video because I had a lot of things to go over and I didn't really cover the points that I really wanted to. But yeah, people were saved before Christ. Where did they go? Because if anyone knows anything about Christianity, you can't go to heaven until Jesus dies. So you got a couple thousand years, though, of people dying that were saved in the faith. What happened to them? They went to Abraham's bosom. And the Wikipedia article here actually is fairly decent. It covers all of what people think about Abraham's bosom. Where is Abraham's bosom? Abraham's bosom is in hell. That's where it is. There are scriptures that say that, and some people would want to spiritualize them away as being a parable or something like that. I know the Seventh-day Adventists do. Effectively, you've got a separation between hell and then you got a great gulf, and on the other side, then you've got paradise. It's referred to as paradise. I have no idea what's down there in paradise. They just call it paradise. But the people in hell can see the people in paradise. And it comes from this parable. How we find out about this. Jesus is talking. And I hate to use the cult term. Some denominations use this and spiritualize it away, but it can't be spiritualized, and here's why. If you spiritualize this passage away, you have no place for people who died in God before Jesus to go. So you can't spiritualize it away. I used to believe this was a spiritualized passage myself, but you've got no place for people to go. You die in God without Jesus sacrificing himself. You can't go to heaven. You know, nowadays everyone goes to heaven, but you can't. You have to wait for Jesus. So, we'll read Luke 16, and this parable, so-called parable, and we'll see why it cannot be a parable and it has to be the truth. There was a certain rich man, which clothed in purple and fine linen, fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass the beggar died, and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. That's where that term comes from. Carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. So this is a spiritual resting place after the guy died. It says the beggar died. He was carried to Abraham's bosom. It doesn't say he was carried into heaven. It says he was carried to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. He wasn't carried anywhere. He was just buried. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham far off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. See, they can see each other. They're both in hell. Everybody's in hell. Except one side's a little bit nicer than the other side, right? That's what it seems like to me. But Abraham said, Son, remember thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. So he's in hell, but he's comforted. He's in Abraham's bosom. And beside all this between us, there is a great gulf fixed. So there's a separation there. This is what happened before Jesus Christ died on the cross. You don't go straight to heaven. You go down to hell. But you go to the good side of hell, right? So that they which would pass from hence you cannot, neither can they pass to us, that which would come from thence. Then he said, I pray thee, therefore, Father, thou wouldest send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brethren, testifying to them. Yeah, the guy's begging to get out. But Abraham's there, Lazarus is there, on the good side. Okay? Like I said, this Wikipedia article actually has some pretty good information on Abraham's bosom. There isn't a whole lot in the Bible about where people went before heaven was opened. Jesus on the cross, though, said, "And Jesus said unto them, the thief, unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." Paradise. So, right after this, Jesus gave up the ghost and went down to paradise for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, heretics like Stephen Anderson will say that he went down to hell and burned. Well, he went down to hell, but he didn't burn. He went to paradise. He went to Abraham's bosom. And that's where everybody went before Christ came. Nowadays, it's not like that. Nowadays, you pretty much get shot straight up to heaven. All your stuff is covered. But before Jesus, you hung out in paradise. And this is kind of where the purgatory idea comes from, too. Is going through the scriptures and where people go before Jesus came. I mean, you could consider paradise sort of purgatory because you're not really in heaven yet. Right? This is where all these strange doctrines come from. Yes, people were saved before Jesus and before the Jews. Yes. They're waiting to get into heaven. They're ready for heaven. And all those people that were sitting in paradise back then are going to go to heaven. As soon as Jesus arose with his keys to heaven and hell, he took everybody with him. Paradise doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's not needed. Purgatory doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's not needed. So, all you Catholics and Seventh-day Adventists can be all mad at me or whatever. But this is how it works. And if you spiritualize away Luke 16:19 through 31, if you spiritualize this away, you no longer have a place for people to go when they die before Christ. That's kind of a problem. They can't go to heaven. Their sins aren't cleansed. So, I just wanted to do a quick follow-up to, the history. And these are kind of questions that nobody really answers ever. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to come back to where people say before Christ and pull up more stuff. But for the time being, we're just going to concentrate on where did people go before Christ? Where did they, when they died? They went to paradise. What is paradise? What's down there? I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. The Bible does not say much about it. But that's where they went. And there are certain people or denominations or whatever you want to call it that will spiritualize what Jesus had to say about Lazarus here away for their own ideas. But if you read it as just plain fact, it makes sense. You can't go to heaven without Jesus dying. So where'd they go? And it says they went to Abraham's bosom. People who want to learn more about it, bosom of Abraham, the Wikipedia article is actually quite good. I don't have any problems with it at all. There's a lot of good research you can do on there. Some Jewish books probably have more information on it. The Bible doesn't say a whole lot. But that's where they went. They hung out and played cards or something until, Jesus was up on the cross. I don't know. With that, I'm going to be out of here.